All right. So let's talk about the next drama uh, news controversy, and that is the Adore versus Danielle, previously from New Jeans, Danielle's mother, and also Mihijin. A lot of people are really just focusing really on Danielle. So I may focus on her too. But there is something I want to talk about Min Hee-jin, which I might as well go ahead and say it. So Min Hee-jin, I was on another person's YouTube channel. And as I was saying, she kind of got caught with her hand in the kujar or her hand in the safe. And one of the things I didn't even know she did this. I knew she was over giving way more money to other people than the normal rate was going. And so they said, I don't know if it's true or not, that Min Hee Jin bought new lot of in bulk New Jeans albums worth millions of wons, and using that as a boost of sales. And what that does, it brings up her put options. And the thing about her going, her last press conference that lasted about 6 months, 6 minutes, excuse me, her last press conference where she glammed herself, saying that she was going to give up all her put options if if HYBE drops all lawsuits against New Jeans, her, and anybody else. Well, and whatever lawsuit that was against her by other people such as Source Music and all that. And I said, well, that's nothing, and that's not something that she can really say over a press conference. She has to go to the table with ADOR and HYBE. But she chose to do it over a press conference because was she serious? Maybe. But you don't do stuff like that. If you were serious, you would have actually sent to the table, and then you can go to the press conference and say, "This is what I did. I asked them to trash everything." No, she said she did over the press conference and told them over a press conference what she wanted them to do. So now that the first hearing of the Adore versus these three people, it came out that more Kakao talks came out, which this is probably the information that Hani, that the parents of the other three girls, probably gave to Adore. And it said in the Kakao talks, if you do this, I will cover any expenses that comes about. So now, in Danielle's case, these are the things that Adore is saying. Danielle, she continually did promotions and sponsorships and endorsements while the injunction was still going on. So we know that all the ladies went to Comic Con, or not Comic Con, but some Hong Kong Complex Con. And in 2025, right? March of 2025, right? Right. And so in the meantime, Adore was filing an injunction with the courts to stop them from doing any promotions and ads. So they already had this Complex Con already on the books. So Adore was like, okay, so they did grant the injunction, but however, Adore was like, okay, since you already had this on the books, then I'm going to send our people to help you with it. They didn't like that. So they debuted as NJZ at the Complex Con and then disbanded right afterwards. Because then that's when the injunction to stop them from doing any activities, and and there would have been a penalty fee if they continue to do activities um, afterwards. And so that's what the problem was. So that's what it was. So they disbanded, they stopped doing all activities. However, Danielle continued to do activities. So that's probably what it is. So each activity she did, it was just the fee that the injunction was placed on them if they do to continue to do activities. So technically, it wasn't the fact of what money she was receiving; it was the fact that she continued to do activities when this injunction was going forth. Danielle was supposed to be featured. I think she was just supposed to be. I don't think she was actually a voice on the track, uh, but I think she was supposed to be somehow she was supposed to be featured in this video. I don't know even where they even knew who she was, which I thought was weird. The emotional oriented side had already spent $175,000, which was 240 million wons, on production and artist costs. They said two details stand out. Adora said Daniel's mother pushed to go ahead with the collaboration, which that's the reason why they're suing the mom. While the chat also discussed backdating the contract. So mom was like, well, we can do it, but can you backdate it to the time before the judgment came forward? But you can't do that because we already know. The defense replied, "Is not nothing actual happened." So the defense said, "Well, Danielle's defense says she did not. Nothing actually came out of it. Okay, so this should not. She should not be sued for it." That's what they're saying. Members believe that the contract was already over, so exploring outside work was natural. You cannot. I can. That's just trying to make a defense because they knew the lawyers knew. They're just trying to make a defense in order to get her out of this thing. Because if why would ADOR continually try to push this court cases to validate that her exclusive contract was still valid, and then put in an injunction on it plus penalties to stop them. Now let's go to the Omega. This is the watch brand that she had. And see how much she's been continually, her family was continually giving her gigs even after the injunction. I mean, that went through and forth. Danielle's firm, which was one of the attorneys of Danielle's firm, said Danielle signed no separate contract with Omega, received no personal payment, and that ADOR staff worked alongside with Omega activities with the revenue going to ADOR. ADOR response cuts the other way. Okay, so this is ADOR response to that. So basically, the lawyer was saying that ADOR already knew the Omega contract and they were actually there when everything was going down at the time. It says the defense account has shifted. One version denied any outside so basically, this is what the defense is saying. One version they said, one version that the Danielle's attorney was saying, denied any outside contracts, while others spoke of communicating with Omega to finish the signing formalities. ADOR says the real question is not whether Danielle was paid, but whether she negotiated a contract with Omega while cutting ADOR out. Okay, so even though the contract may have been with ADOR previously, they were saying they did a backdoor deal. They were trying to do a backdoor deal. So once the injunction came forward, and so all activities technically was halted until all this stuff was going down. And so ADOR was saying, ADOR said, yeah, even though there was no money exchange, they were again was doing a backdoor deal. They were trying to do a backdoor deal, and using the fact that ADOR knew about the Omega watch, the Omega ads. On the defense's own wording, that question is not yet answered. This is the Elle spread, the Elle magazine spread in Singapore. Both sides agreed a photo shoot happened and a magazine was published. So they knew, if there was a photo shoot and a magazine published, you got receipts. She was in it. However, the defense says Danielle received nothing personally and that no final contract has been confirmed. Talks under her name fizzled when the dispute broke out. ADOR's position is sharper. It did not arrange the shoot, so ADOR did not arrange the shoot, was not paid directly for that shoot, and was cut out entirely, yet the work came out anyway. Okay. The judge kept pressing the obvious question. If ADOR did not set it up, who did? And noted that the amount involved matters to how serious the conduct was. So depending on how much she actually did get out of it, that's just how serious this was. So then the strength of ADOR's argument is to make that it does not need a payment to make its point. Doing the work and entertaining the arrangements at all without going through the agent is itself alleged a breach. This is the avant-garde records and other music works. ADOR also raised possible work with avant-garde records and Emotional Oranges and a name given uncertainly as Goss. The defense says some of this was really about supporting Danielle's older sister, Olivia Marsh, and that nothing came out of it. This one's the partnership. ADOR suspects the members set up a partnership as a structure for activities, income, or management outside the agency, which ADOR says could not coexist with the exclusive contract. So basically, they developed a company under their NJZ company. Basically, that's what it was. And that's what ADOR was saying. So they did like a partnership together to develop a company in order to continue to function as NJC. The defense says it was only used to process costs, made no revenue, and was represented by the member Minji. So they throw Minji on the bus now. So this happened in 2020, started happening in 2024. So in 2025, so let's just say 2025. So we're looking at a year. So she was like 21 years old at the time this all was going down. And so it was possible why Minji was the one was because her age, plus she was South Korean. So it was probably easier for her to file any financial things or anything like that. It's just because she was South Korean. The other girls were probably underage, so they couldn't really use them to do this. Okay, so that's probably why they used Minji. Hani and Danielle were foreigners, and they were on a visa. So technically, then they would have had to do the articles of corporation in their country, I suppose. I guess they can't do an article of corporations in South Korea because they're not Korean. So that's probably why they used Minji. So the judgment stated basically observation that if a member, not ADOR, ran the partnership, it could look like the five operating as their own outfit. Okay, so yeah. He approved an inquiry into the partnership's records, so including tax filing. So they want to know, did they file taxes underneath this corporation, underneath this partnership? What kind of much money they made under this partnership? And I guess that's probably why Minji is still holding out to see what's going to be happening. But ADOR is not charging Minji, so that's another thing that Danielle's team is saying. Why are you charging Danielle but you're not charging Minji? Because Minji was the one who was holding the bag. and she was the one. It's semantics, you know. Just because she had the money, she still stopped all the activities, meaning she stopped doing everything. And I think at this point, I think this is probably why Minji is not coming back. Probably doesn't want to come back. Not because she may have been not because of this, but because of the situations that developed and realizing, yeah, we were lied to. Several of these companies are overseas, and the defense warned that formal international inquiries could stall the case. So they were trying, that's probably why they were trying to wait, because they were trying to get the other foreign companies to help them out. The judge proposed a faster route. Both sides prepare questions, send them to the companies by email, and file the answers. Okay. What he wants is objective material: contract drafts, emails, meeting dates, bookings, and payment records. Who paid whom, and any finished work, not opinions. Okay. So you don't necessarily need a document from these agencies saying what was happening. You basically, ADOR and Danielle's team can present whatever they had from these different places, or can ADOR prove from these different things. So Danielle's team should have some form of documents. Even Danielle's mother should have some form of documents, emails, or contracts, or invoices, or something that was paid out, or was any correspondence going back and forth. Okay, so that's kind of what the judge was trying to say. Domestic targets like Omega's Korean entity and the partnership's tax records can go through the court directly. So Omega's in Korea, they should be able to get it themselves since it was done in Korea. Part 2 was the termination of Danielle legal. ADOR wants money, not a ban on working. Okay, so we know that Danielle's side has been continuous saying that this case is causing her not to work. Okay, and saying that who will want to pay an artist 100 million won fee, and so on and so forth. ADOR stresses that it's not asking the court to stop Danielle from working. It is claiming a penalty and damages for breach that's already happened. The defense answered that a petitional liability near 100 billion wons makes Danielle effectively unsignable. So the lawsuit blocks her in practice even without a formal ban. So ADOR really wasn't asking for a contract termination fee because they terminated the contract. So ADOR then came back and said Danielle behaved as though she was free to negotiate and work elsewhere when it suited her. And it is hard to credit the complaint that she is now trapped when the same person was acting independently and not long before. So you were still working even then. Now you're complaining, saying because of this lawsuit, you can't work. So that's what Dora was saying. In the same breath, you can't say you were working. You were doing all these things before. Now you're saying you can't do nothing because of this lawsuit. So she probably she may not be marketable. So even if she was doing sponsorships, models, and things in that nature that was outside of music, she may not be marketable. Her brand reputation is tanking. That's pretty much what they're saying. So then so Danielle's team comes back and says estoppel argument. This is the defense's best legal point. Okay, so the attorney says ADOR told the court. Okay, so this is the attorney said that ADOR told the court over and over during the earlier cases, so all the time they were in these cases, that the contracts were valid. Okay, that trust was intact, and that it wanted the members back, even laying out concrete plans for a July release, a full album, fan meetings, and a world tour. ADOR CEO reportedly sent the parents messages on October 30th and the 31st, begging them to return. So I'm assuming this was 2024 because it was 2025 when they were supposed to come back. I think that was right after their first press conference statement. I think their first press conference was September 2024 when they stated they were leaving, and then a month later, they've been trying to get these parents to get these girls back. Danielle, the argument goes, relied on this, announced her return, and was then terminated alone over all contact. The attorney says is self contradiction, abuse of termination rights, and litigation estoppel. So basically, you can't say one thing but then do another. The court stated the contract was valid and the girls came back, but then you ended up turning around and ending Danielle's contract only. So that's contradicting yourself. You can't. That's estoppel. You can't say one thing and then when it comes back, you change your mind. They didn't have a choice. The court case itself was not stating they had to come back. It was just basically validating that they just couldn't walk away from the exclusive contract. And so they choose to whether if they wanted to come back or not. And ADOR sat down with each and every one of them. And so it was a high end, and so this is Hiren and high end, and both automatically after it came back a week later, 2 weeks later, they automatically didn't even bother with the appeal. They automatically stated, okay, the parents came up, the dad said, y'all going back. Okay. So they automatically went back. And then ADOR announced it, right? And then later, the attorneys who were handling the exclusive contract stated that Hani, Minji, and Danielle also put in their statement that they wanted to come back too. But however, they never really officially went back to ADOR to ask for it. And so ADOR said, we don't know what their position is. Oh, they just hearing from them, from what they're saying. So Hani came back with her family. So Hani, I think, is Japanese. I want to say, well, she has Japanese, or she lives in Japanese. Let me see here. She's Australian. Okay. So yeah, so she's from Australia. So Hani came back with her family, and they had a talk with ADOR, and her family probably gave stuff to prove that Hani was just an innocent bystander, just like the other girls were, and she was just going along because this is what she was being told, and this is what they were being told. You're grown as a parent. You're grown, and they were probably Minhee was probably gonna say, hey, I'll give you X. They did. I think that's one of the things on the Kakawa talks. If you do this, I can guarantee you X amount of wands or X amount of dollars. But however, after the second hearing, when the court kept saying stuff, you'll think it would got kicked back. I still don't know who actually did the Complex Con. How that even come about? They had a new song and everything too. So I wonder if that had anything with Emotional Orange. ADOR's reply is the more precise reading of what the first judgment actually decided. The court asked whether the members could terminate because of ADOR's fault, and the court said no. Okay, so it did not decide whether ADOR could later terminate because of Danielle's fault, a separate question. And trust was not destroyed in that ruling. So at the time of the ruling, trust was not okay. Well, yeah, it was, but anyway, but the time that the girls decided they want to leave, trust was not destroyed. So that's what the court was ruling on. So in 2024, that first press conference where they said the trust was no longer available, it was feeling like I was going back to my bully and all that other stuff. That was the judgment on that part. And the court ruled at that time in 2024 of that press conference they had, the first press conference they had, trust was not destroyed. Okay. That's what that was. It had nothing to do with her later doing these jobs. It was just the ruling was based on that itself. Why the girls walked away. It just happened to happen a year later that it came back. So the strength of the estoppel argument, so this is depends heavily on whether ADOR already knew the relevant facts during the earlier case. On the record so far, ADOR has the strongest answer, though it turns on a timing question that is not yet resolved. What ADOR said it learned later. Okay, so this is what they thought. ADOR's account is that it only understood the scope of Danielle's outside activities and the mother's role after the judgment through meetings with the members and families and later review of materials. So they were going to bring them all back, but it wasn't until after the ruling and when they started to negotiate these with these girls to come back, this is when everything started to come out. And they were like, whoa, wait a minute, what was going on? So that's what it is. The defense says ADOR knew or could have known most of it during the earlier, so this is the defense. ADOR knew or could have known most of it during the earlier suit, pointing out, for example, that ADOR mentioned in an Omega re-signed under review in the October 15 filing. So the judge was like, you need to draw a clear line. What did ADOR knew based on the earlier case, and what did they know? Judge told sides to draw a clean line between what ADOR knew during the earlier case and what is generally learned afterwards, because that line may decide the estoppel issue. Okay, so if ADOR knew what was going on with Danielle, and you still went forward and told them that they can come back, you were open for them to all come back, and then fired her, then that's where the estoppel issue came back. But however, if ADOR only knew this portion of what was going on with Danielle, and still, even then, still was willing to have her come back, and then found out later that it was a lot more detailed after they came back to the table after the ruling, then the estoppel would have been dismissed. So then they were saying that Danielle side said for corrective measures, you should at least allow Danielle to correct the issue before you terminated her. The contract appears to require ADOR to give Danielle a chance to fix the breach before terminating. The defense says that the notice was hollow because the activities were already over and could not be undone. Danielle asks what concretely she was supposed to do. So Danielle was like, well, what did you want me to do, ADOR? And you can't fix something that it was already, well, I guess you can fix something that was already broke, but it was already damaged. And you can't go back in time to change it. ADOR said fixing it never meant erasing the past. Okay, so it meant explaining why the activities happened, disclosing the relevant agreements and messages, cleaning up any outside legal relationships, helping repair the damage to ADOR's standing, and proposing concrete steps to rebuild trust. So this is what ADOR is saying. It's nothing that necessarily means about fixing it, but you could have done this to help yourself. But again, she wasn't willing to do that. ADOR says Danielle instead gave vague assurances and denied facts ADOR believed were already supported by evidence. Okay, so She didn't really give her detailed account. She didn't help. Basically, she did not help uh, ADOR. The other girls gave detailed Kakwa talks, messages, talked and explained to them what was going on in their heads, why they were doing it. Danielle didn't because, of course, her mom. So what's she gonna do? She can't throw her mother underneath the bus. And then in part 4 was the Danielle's mother. Adora says the mother played a bigger role than the other parents, linking Mihijin, the parents, and the members taking part in the outside activities, planning, helping keep the breach going, and interfering with the return. So that is what's going on. The factual story is concrete where it counts. March 21st chat with its shoot dates, the spent budget, the proposed backdate contract, the proposed payment route through their sister. So the whole emotional orange was the fact that Danielle was giving money. Danielle's mother was trying to backdate it. Plus, she was trying to use Danielle's sister to put that money in Danielle's sister's name and not Danielle. The L Singapore shoot, shifting account to Omega, partnership represented by a member, clear timing argument that the worst of it is surfaced only after earlier judgment. So that was kind of what's going on. Min Hee Jin, we know Min Hee Jin's case was a little bit more that she did have her cockawalk talks stating that she would pay any fees or she would get, and plus she would give them money if New Jeans members left ADOR and went to her. So that's what she was promising the parents. And that's the reason why they were sticking to their guns. I mean, you think about it, even after. So I think because Min Hee Jin won several of her cases against HYBE, and the fact that she won her put options was probably why they continued it, because her case came before uh, uh, new NJZ's, right? So that's what happened. So I think that's the reason why they continued to go forward, because they still thought it was a glimmer of hope. And she was in, and then when she won her put options, I can't remember, was it? Yeah. So, but then HYBE is appealing that, and then she got back up once their case came back. Then she came back and said, if Adora, she fought for almost over a year and a half about these put options, and now she wanted to give them up. Well, now we know why, because her Kakua talks.